from the highest up of power to someone at the lowest. Now, the Libs of TikTok account did start as a private citizen and then amass 700,000 followers. So now it is very powerful. It's way more powerful than the Washington Post. It's way more powerful in the aspect of critical theory. I'm going to go through the article because that kind of brings up the points that I want to cover. I want to read comments as well. Before I do that, there's two main things here. Some people are talking about, and I even talked about, well, if you're going to bring up Libs of TikTok, why don't you bring up some of the videos and the positions and say, hey, this position is anti-LGBTQ. Here's why. Are we okay with this? I'm fine with that. That's like promoting discussion and saying, and even if your opinion is the account is anti this identity, anti that identity, let's have a discussion about it. Because that's opinion. So some people can say it is and it isn't. But there's two, that's the micro take. The macro take is, this is a religious battle. So there's a lot going on. It's a fifth generational. So when I say fifth generational, let me kind of go over that, because these are terms that I never even thought about really. So let me put this in here and talk about it so I can show what I mean. When we say fifth generational warfare, fifth generation warfare is warfare that, this is Wikipedia, that is conducted primarily through non-kinetic military action, such as social engineering, misinformation, cyber attacks, along with emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, and so on. So it's a war of information and perception. So when I say we are in a fifth generational, there's been some hot kinetic stuff, but it's not like a full blown like the Civil War in 1860. We're talking about informational civil war. That's where we're in. Informational. Then on top of that is the Civil War. So when you say it's a civil war, Bill Maher famously said, where's the Mason-Dixon line? Like there was a clear-cut line between the North and the South back in the 19th century. What's the line now? The clear line is critical theory, or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. That's semantics, with people saying it's, applied principles, and it's postmodernism, it's wokeism, it's neo-Marxism, whatever you want to call it. This thing about race, where you look at everything as racist. The Pope even said that on Easter or around Easter. So it's a religion that even the Pope has to bow to. That's the Mason-Dixon line. There is no, I think I kind of look through things as everything is racism, or I'm not sure. Either you do or you don't. And that's the line. And that is a religious line, because that's all opinion. There's no fact there. What's your definition of racism? They view racism as if you hail a taxi and the taxi doesn't stop, it's racist. Bryson Gray was just called a white supremacist because of the people he was hanging with. So this is all, even race is subjective. So that is faith, and it is a religion. I think it is a religion that views government as God, but let's just, for the sake of it, just call it a non-theistic religion. So we're in a fifth generation informational civil war in America, and the Mason-Dixon line is critical theory of race, critical theory of gender, and any other. You can do critical theory of anything, but those are the top two. And that's what Libs of TikTok was doing. It was the most important media outlet, period. Bigger than Fox. It was the biggest. It's a hell of a story. Probably could be a movie one day. It was the biggest, or is still there, is the biggest influencer in this civil war that we're having right now. No one's bigger. No one's more important. Everybody's talking it from. I use some of their videos. Tim Pool used some of their videos. Fox News and Tucker Carlson, like they're all using the stuff. Everybody. So there's a value with all the information that we have in the world right now. there is a value to curating or aggregating information. When I go on TikTok, I don't see any of that stuff. I've never searched it. They don't give it to me. I see more DJs rapping, some sports, a little bit of dancing, some MAGA, some people who are more, I don't want to say conspiracy theories, but more independent thinkers. That's what I see on TikTok. I have never once seen any of the critical theory, culture war, civil wars on TikTok. And I'm on there a little bit every day, probably. Some days more than others. I'm really more on Twitter constantly. So I don't see it. So Libs of TikTok curates it and says, here's one of the most important ones that I'm going to show one of the most important ones that Libs of TikTok exposed recently. They've exposed a ton of them. This one is the best definition of critical theory of gender that I've ever seen. That's what I'm going to show here. And this was very recent post. I think it was after they got banned and came back. So let me see if I can find that. I don't have it queued up yet. This is the one where the woman is describing, the tool. A fifth grade teacher shows her lesson plan for teaching gender and sexuality. And this is not for me. I'm not doing this to go against this person. I'm doing this to show and make a point.
This is a tool I use to teach students about gender and sexuality. First up, we have sex assigned at birth. This is what the doctor says you are when you come out of the womb. It should be based on chromosomes, hormones, and genitals, but most of the time doctors just look at genitals. Next up, we have gender identity, which is totally different from sex assigned at birth. This is what you feel you are inside, and no one can see this from the outside. There are 3 different sliders that you can move up and down to describe your gender identity. Then we have gender expression, which is how you show your gender to the world. It's usually based on a sort of binary system, which isn't perfect. Again, you can slide these up and down to show the different gendered ways you express yourself. Then we jump down to attraction. We have physical attraction and emotional attraction. These are different. Again, there are sliders that a person can use to best describe their sexuality. This incredible resource is made by the Trans Student Educational Resources. You can go to their website right here. They're an incredible community. This is a tool I use to teach students about gender and sexuality.
So that's it there. That is a perfect definition. I'm not here. This video is not to argue that or not. I don't even want to get off on a tangent. My point of showing that is right at the heart of the issue. Critical theory of race, critical theory of gender has become a state-sponsored religion, non-theistic, you could say, religion. And Libs of TikTok takes the heart of the religion from people who already volunteered to put their stuff online and highlights it. I agree, Libs of TikTok frames it in a negative light. That's their prerogative. And that has become so powerful in exposing it. Remember, we said most people don't agree with a lot of this stuff. If you just look at random people in America, I don't have the facts for that, but I don't think most people agree with this video that I just saw, that we just played. So the minority, the very amped up minority of the bootlicking left, they're worried about Libs of TikTok rising up and exposing all of this, and they know the majority of people aren't going to side with them. If they thought the majority of people looked at Libs of TikTok and sided with them, they wouldn't care. Right? I hope that's fair to say. If they thought Libs of TikTok, in an attempt to highlight them, actually made them look better, they wouldn't care. Instead, they care a lot. It's everything. And that's the danger of having a state-sponsored religion. You have protected identity groups. You have a state-sponsored religion. Could Taylor Lorenz have done this to any oppressed person? Now, the oppressed group doesn't matter as much as, are you the bootlicker or not? Are you pro the cabal establishment or not? So somebody who has the right identity on paper but doesn't have the right ideology wouldn't count. But Taylor Lorenz, the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos, they would never, and I have never seen them do anything close to this type of doxing to someone who is in a protected identity group and agrees with their ideology. So what we're seeing now is a weaponization of media against a common citizen. And the common citizen gets intimidated and threatened because if one person like Libs of TikTok can rise up to that level of prominence, then other people can too. You think there's one Libs of TikTok? Well, then you have a Defiant L's rise to prominence. Then you could have another one rise to prominence. And all of this is happening on their playing field, their turf. Twitter. They consider Twitter their turf. So that's all the context surrounding this. So the first part of it, the biggest takeaway is that this is about religion. And when you look through history, damn near every war was fought over one or two, probably over three things altogether: religion, morals, and money. That's what causes wars historically. And this one, it probably encompasses all of them, but it does encompass religion. Somebody on Twitter, I want to share this. What I did is I just saved some links here because I knew I wanted to reference them. So maybe, who knows, maybe I won't read much of the article because like, what is it going to add to this? I don't know. So let me go to this here. So somebody was talking about this. Joe Petlin talked about this. So Joe Petlin said, because in the article it referenced, it referenced religion. And so what it says here, and I'll pull it up in the article here as well. I want to be fair to make sure that I give the right context. So let me pull up in the article, then I'll come right back to this tweet. I'll just search on Jewish. Okay. So this is the article by Taylor Lorenz. So I just want to show the start of it here, the headline and everything here. So if you go down, this is what this tweet I'm going to read is about. I'm going to read this full paragraph. By early last March, she pivoted to a parody account titled Houseplant POTUS, pretending to tweet as if she was a houseplant living with President Biden. She revamped her avatar to look like a small shrub with Biden's face on the leaves. At that point in time, she also claimed to be proudly Orthodox Jewish, live in Brooklyn, and work in real estate in her Twitter bio. So this is about Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok had multiple accounts, just like I'm on YouTube. I don't even remember how many channels I have because we don't know what the algorithm is. I'm playing around to see what does the algorithm do. If I start a new account, how many views does the video get versus account that's already established, all that kinds of stuff. I'm actually not seeing that much of a correlation, which is interesting. With my account, like I have more followers than another account. I have like 20 followers, and I'm not really seeing that much of a correlation between it. So I'm just learning, getting information, and she was trying different things out is what it looks like. But why was it pertinent for Taylor Lorenz to say, at that point in time, she also claimed to be proudly Orthodox Jewish? So she put a link to the receipts. Taylor Lorenz did this to the Wayback Machine, Wayback Machine. And she's talking about, hey, here's the House of Plants POTUS thing. So Libs of TikTok has been creative, is what I gather from it. Very creative kind of site, kind of person. So that's how I would describe it. But why did she put proudly Orthodox Jewish? What is the point of that? Joel says the only time when the religious affiliation of the subject should be included in an article is when it's germane to the story. Let me stop there. The name of Libs of TikTok isn't germane to the story either, but that was in there. So there's two things going on here: the religious part, and then I'm going to get to the moral part where you talk about this code of ethics or what are your morals? Because Taylor Lorenz didn't do anything illegal here, in my opinion. So now we're just talking about morals. And Libs of TikTok didn't do anything illegal. They try to label as she was there on J6, allegedly, insurrection and all that stuff. Well, she's not arrested. At this point, didn't do anything illegal. Looks like Taylor wants that to happen, is what I'm getting at. But it's just a moral thing. Some people think your morals, if you were there at J6, as crazy as that might sound to the critical thinkers that pretty much watch this channel, some people think anyone who was in DC on J6 and you weren't anti-Trump, you were immoral and insurrectionist and all this other stuff. So let me finish the religious part before I get to the moral part. The only time when that affiliation of your religion should come up is when it's pertinent. How is it pertinent? This person, I don't even know who it is. Joel doesn't understand. It is pertinent. That's why she put it. It's very pertinent. Including the irrelevant detail that the Twitter account she's outing is run by an Orthodox Jew is reprehensible. I agree. That's the moral part. Shame on Taylor Lorenz and Washington Post. It's interesting what we call anti-Semitic and what we don't in this country. I haven't heard any. I'm not calling her that. I don't throw around racist and all those terms like other people do. But I look at where you point that term as a weapon and where you don't point it as a weapon. And I think that tells something about you. So I'm not accusing her of that. But I look at, see people who have used this term in the past, would they use it now? And then if not, fine, explain to me why. No, because the term is a weapon, just like racist. It's just being used, white supremacist. Doesn't have any meaning other than I'm pointing my weapon at you. That's the fifth generational warfare. So the more influence you have, the bigger the weapon is. Libs of TikTok, their fifth generation weapon was getting to be like a hypersonic missile. And they were like, we don't have hypersonic missiles. That's what happened. They have the Patriot Takes and Right Wing Watch and all these that do the exact same thing that Libs of TikTok does. But nobody cares. It's not really exposing something that there's a demand in the market for to learn about. They have things like people who made a statue of Buddha into Donald Trump, and which I agree is like stupid stuff, but it's not as captivating. The people, their rise is not organic. Libs of TikTok was going against the stream. Who knows how much the algorithm might be against Libs of TikTok and they're swimming upstream. Who knows? I'm going to tie it into this before I get to the morals. The Pope. I don't know. I'm just watching things more than normally. So maybe this is normal for the Pope. I don't know. Somebody tell me. I don't know. I seriously don't know. I'm not lying or anything like that. Is this normal? So you want to talk about is critical theory or religion or not? Pope Francis, we are racists. We are racists. If refugees are subdivided, there's first class, second class skin color, whether they come from a developed country or one that is not developed. We are racists. We are racists, and this is bad. That is critical theory. Just because you see class, second class, that's classism. That's not racism, number one. Then you see skin color. That doesn't mean it's racism. It could be. But critical theory says everything is racist. That is the highest member. Correct me. I'm not a big Catholic or anything, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think this came from the highest ranking member of the Catholic Church. Bowing down not to God, but showing not fear of God, showing fear of critical theory. Don't tell me that this is not a religion. There is absolutely nothing that the highest member of the Catholic faith should be bowing down to other than God. I'm not Catholic. I'm just saying, like, if I'm wrong, explain to me what's happening. And we see this all throughout churches all over the place. Bowing down to the religion of critical theory. That's the same thing we've seen happen with many governments, kings in the past. You got a state religion Our religion is the religion. Every other religion is secondary. So when we came up and they said, you got to take this experimental drug. When I said, and some people said, well, I'm religious here. And they said, no, that you're not. That's the government saying that we don't recognize your religion. And notice the religion of critical theory never goes against the government, ever. It does not go against the government. Is Joe Biden, everything's supposed to be racist, right? Is Joe Biden racist? They don't even pose the question. Critical theory does not ask questions. It tells you that you watching me right now is racist. Me on YouTube talking about this is racist. Is Nancy Pelosi a white supremacist? Is Joe Biden? Is Chuck Schumer? It doesn't even ask the question. So it tells you there's some type of issue there. Either you think that the government entities are God, or you're funded by them, or both. And that's where we are. So we create a state-sponsored religion, and there does not have to be coordination. So I'm not even alleging a conspiracy theory here. Kind of did Trump hands. Like Trump does like that. I kind of like that. I'm going to steal that. I'm not even alleging a conspiracy. Look at the pandemic response. They just lifted the mask mandate. And you look at the things that didn't make any sense. So you're on a plane. I've talked about this a lot of times, but bear with me. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You're on the plane and someone 2-year-old, like a little kid 2-year-old or older, has to wear a damn mask. They're still like infant. They're like still little kids. They don't live. They're like, why the hell are you putting a mask on my face? Are you trying to harm me? So some parents couldn't keep them on keep the mask on their face because the natural instinct for we are animals is to, I want to breathe. What are you doing? So some people got kicked off planes for that. But you could eat. So if you wanted a damn peanut, you could take the mask off. You were required to wear the mask in the airport, on the plane. You could eat on the airport or on the plane. You would land at an airport where the restaurants were closed inside. What my point is, there was no coordination there to make sure, okay, this policy, it's almost like you're telling lies and you can't keep one lie consistent with the other. There was no coordination. So my point is, with the state-sponsored religion, it will work the same way. No, but Jeff Bezos doesn't have to go to Taylor Lorenz and say, I approve this. We know what Jeff Bezos is. We know what is the approved state religion. We all know what it is. Have you watched the Academy Awards? Have you watched Hollywood? Have you watched all this race swapping? Have you watched any TV recently? Have you watched a Disney movie? You would have to be under a rock not to understand what the government wants from us. They want critical theory of race, critical theory of gender. They want equity. So Taylor Lorenz knows that. Sagar tweeted that there are a lot of people that he talks to behind the scenes that don't approve of this. And it got him heated. He said Taylor Lorenz's rise as a proxy for death of U.S. media credibility. Everyone in caps. Sagar is not a caps type of dude. In the business, privately admits she is out of control, and yet they say nothing or defend in abstract. They are cowards, and their inability to internally police is why they have no credibility. Why would they stay silent? Because they know that's what Jeff Bezos wants for whatever reason. That's what the government wants. That's what everybody wants. If I speak out against it, as soon as I do that, I become as expendable as Libs of TikTok. It doesn't matter if we agree on 90% of the other things. They're literally scared for their lives, not just their livelihoods. That's what's happening. That's why the founding fathers put in the Establishment Clause. The Establishment Clause basically says that the government cannot create a state-sponsored official religion. It's that simple. And why would they say that? Because they ran from the Church of England. It was used as a weapon to go against their political and social adversaries back then. And that's why the Pilgrims and Puritans, and I don't even know the full difference between the two, but they came across risked their lives to leave. Went all the way up to Holland. They went to wherever they could go. And some people took the risk to come here. And that's how this whole thing started. Sometimes things come full circle. The First Amendment, this is according to Cornell law, the First Amendment's Establishment Clause. And I really like Charlie Kirk, but he kind of pissed me off the other day with this little thing. I still like him, of course. But he said something to the effect of, because there's people interpret this and this is where people get there is nothing in the Constitution that says, to my knowledge, there should be a separation of church and state. Charlie Kirk, on one of his episodes recently, I think it was late last week, said he doesn't believe in that. And I'm like, okay, then why are you complaining about critical theory then? If that's fine, if that's your take. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a constitutional expert. So if your take is you don't believe in the separation of church and state, then I don't want to hear you complain at all, ever. I don't want you to hear you complain about critical theory. Then you're going down the route that I said is you should just let it all go on in the schools and the market will decide. I don't agree with Charlie Kirk at all in that. So the Establishment Clause prohibits the government from making any law, so that's a law, respecting the establishment of religion. This clause not only forbids the government from establishing an official religion, but it also prohibits the government actions that unduly favor one religion over another. It also prohibits the government from unduly preferring religion over non-religion or non-religion over religion. That is the clear interpretation of that clause. So how are they trying to get around it? They use your identity. They use the color of the skin. Oh, this critical theory of race, that's not a religion. I'm trying to help you because of your black skin. Okay, well, number one, my skin's not black, it's brown. A small detail. Number two, I'm darker than half those people that you have. Do I get more say or not in your religion? I'm not the one saying this. No, because my views don't align with yours. I'm not even black. You don't think that's a religion? I mean, it's cultish type behavior. That's where all of this is coming. That's the big takeaway from this. And it's all coming to a head. Let me go to the moral part of this. The moral part of this is the journalistic code of ethics. Or just, forget about the journalistic, it sounds like an oxymoron. The journalistic code of ethics. Like that's like a thing, really. That's not a law. That's not a law at all. Well, I sound really stupid even talking about this. So, I'm not going to talk about, in particular, the journalistic code of ethics. Let's talk about it in general. But let me start here. Tim Pool tweeted this. Tim said, "This is wrong. One of the most important journalistic ethics is to minimize harm. The story is not served by exposing a name. The story is served by explaining their background and motives. Based on the responses to the story, you can see the true motivation was to cause harm." This is the problem with ethics, is we all don't agree. When it came to the end of the 19th century, or 1860, it was about money. You could say first and foremost, but of course, the underlying issue behind that was, how do you make your money? The South depended on slavery. It was the rich landowners. It wasn't everybody didn't have slaves. They were expensive back then. The rich democratic landowners in the South, they needed slaves to maximize their profits. And then we came to a head and said, we don't want to do slavery anymore. And that's where we are here. It's just it's a discussion of morals. And you might say, well, how do you get from journalistic ethics to comparing it to slavery. It's not just the journalistic ethics. What I'm getting at is we do not share enough forget about the Constitution, forget about laws, forget they even exist. Look at America as just the wild, wild west, like a true ANCAP. We do not share enough morals, like just what is good and bad, to share a society. We don't know what a woman is or a man is. We don't agree on it. We don't even care enough to come together and say, we don't agree, let's figure it out. That's probably more concerning than even not agreeing, is that we don't even think it's important to figure out as a country. So we don't agree on that. We're falling apart under the basic idea of maybe we shouldn't talk about certain topics with children and leave that up to parents. We can't agree. There's no meeting in the middle ground with this type of thing. I've seen MAPS. You can look that up on Twitter, what that means. It's an acronym, M-A-P as in Paul, M as in Mary, A as in Apple, P as in Paul. MAPS on Twitter rising up and saying we need to be respected as a identity group. And what happens is people on the left kind of ignore it because they don't want to get into it. They don't condemn it. That's where we are. We don't agree on how to treat children. We don't agree on whether the government should be able to put a diaper on your face to mandate it or not. Even if it went through the legislative process like it should have, it still would be unconstitutional and would have to be challenged to the Supreme Court. The government cannot force me to put a diaper on my face, period. I don't care what the circumstances are. I don't care how deadly the thing is. We don't share enough morals, and it starts with the most fundamental one back in the Civil War was slavery. Are we going to treat other human beings as dogs and property, or are we not? And then now we're at, what is a man or a woman? How do we work this out? Nobody even cares to work it out. And then it goes down and down and down to Taylor Lorenz. It starts at the top, goes down. The moral foundation is crumbled. So you have a basement leaking water. So you have to take the whole house apart. It's beyond repair. That's what this big picture is right now. So the morals are, these aren't laws. These aren't laws. So Taylor Lorenz is like, she's an insurrectionist. I'll go to my profile here and show what I mean by that. Taylor Lorenz flat out was trying to justify her take. And I replied, I quote tweeted it. If I can find it. I always have trouble finding the stuff in here when I need it. So this is it. I think this is a cry. So Taylor Lorenz, this is a subsequent tweet after the story had already broke and her original one got ratioed. Let's see if this one got ratioed. Because I think she was trying to do another one so this one wouldn't get ratioed. Yep. This one did not get ratioed. So it worked. It was smart. So this is her second tweet. She said, I hope after the story had already broke, she already released the link to it and everything. I hope it's not lost on people that woman behind Libs of TikTok previously boosted election fraud, conspiracies, and claims she was inside the barrier at the Capitol on the J6 insurrection. And I replied, this is a cry for help from Taylor to validate her moral repugnance. She knows what she did is morally disgusting, even if it's legal. And she did a follow-up tweet, and the first one got ratioed. She did a follow-up tweet to throw in insurrectionist J6, and not as many people saw it, and it worked, and it didn't get ratioed. So she just threw up that beacon of, don't forget, the reason why I did dox her or amplify the doxing of her is completely justified because I disagree with her politically. So we're in the middle of a fifth generational there. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Oh my goodness. So we're in the middle of a fifth generational civil war. a religious one on top of that, and we don't share enough we don't have enough shared morals to share a society. Other than that, everything's just great.